Well, first, Dave, welcome to Venue Visionaries. This is a podcast that we talk about issues that impact sports facilities and sports facility managers, and get students who are interested in that field an insight to what it is. And Dave Raymond, we're glad to have you. You started in the mailroom for the Philadelphia Phillies while in college. You parlayed that into becoming literally a pop culture icon when you debuted as the Philly Phanatic in 1978. Along with the San Diego Chicken, I honestly feel that you two sort of created the mascot culture that we know today. And you were everywhere back in the 70s and 80s. I maybe we'll ask you how many appearances that you used to do in a single season, but from TV, ballparks, you were literally everywhere, and your antics were so popular. And I mean this as a compliment. I think of you as one of the master clowns of the 20th century. You're one of those icons. You've long since hung up your Philly Phanatic uniform, but you're still involved in the mascot world. You're involved in mascot creation and consulting and advising mascots. And then you're also a motivational speaker, and a very popular one at that. And your website touts the evolution of happiness, focusing on leading a healthier and more productive life, which that's become a big topic in the 21st century, how we get that life work balance. How do we find, when we're working a lot of hours under a lot of pressure, how we find joy? So, Dave, first off, welcome and thank you so much for doing this.
It is absolutely my pleasure. Now, you might say, well, what else would you say, Dave? You're here. But I appreciate and enjoy the podcast formula and platform more than any outreach that's out there, because it can have a niche audience and you can be talking directly to them. But I think what you and Gil have done, Matt, if you've expanded it and made it very popular with the community of students that need support, help, and guidance. So it's my pleasure. I'll try to alternately remove my clown hat with a mascot head and then with a hero of happiness. So we'll kind of smash all those together, and hopefully we'll get something positive for the students.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. First question for you. Working at a sports venue, such as a stadium, arena, can be a very stressful situation at times. You're dealing with live events, things can go wrong. How would you recommend employees handle the stress they encounter at work in a positive way and a productive way? How would you
It,
recommend that happen?
well, it can be a complex answer to a difficult question that many of us, people, anybody who's working anywhere under stressful situations, that are either driven by their environment or driven by their environment outside of work. So the most important thing is to look at what ultimately what the output that you are doing with the work in the business of sports and sports marketing is. Ultimately, you're delivering kindness. And if you focus on the end user of no matter what business you're in, and try to define what the ultimate purpose is and what it's doing good for the world. And I say the world without being hyperbolic. It's, kindness is something that if we all were to engage as a prime directive in everything that we do, is going to make the world a better place. So in the sports industry, entertainment is about bringing joy to people, delivering kindness. And if you are passionate about the work that you do, you have to always be, those people that are passionate are recognizing the value and the benefit of what their work is delivering, and then who is receiving it and what's the benefit to them. So one of the best ways to be happier in life is two things: to take the focus off yourself. That's why kindness is such a very powerful intentional activity. And two is deliver everything that you do with people around you with a positive focus. And I'll give you one hack. Stop asking people during your day how they're doing. Instead, replace that with tell me something good. And they're required to turn off their negative bias and then come up with something that's 100% positive. And those conversations, no matter what the stress level is, becomes a small light in maybe a difficult day, or completely changes a day that is good into being a highly memorable day. So the tell me something good is what I tell my audiences all the time to do. And I think it really makes sense of this environment, especially if folks are stressed, tired, working hard. That's a great way to change the perspective, and it's important to do that for all of us to build happiness in your life, but also to help those around us as well.
I think that's a great answer. I mean, taking the focus off yourself is something that I don't think I've really given much thought because I can't tell you how many times that you're with people, and I've heard other people say this. I've experienced it myself, where you go to bed worried about all these things that could happen to you tomorrow, and then 95% of the time they never do, and you spend your life worrying about things that probably aren't going to happen instead of focusing, like you said, on bringing bringing joy and in yourself, creating joy around you too, and making it a more positive experience. I love that answer. Now, I guess take this sort of the same question from my perspective. I manage a sports facility. I manage employees. How can somebody like myself create a positive work environment where I still have to get goals and objectives done? What sort of thing would you recommend to somebody like me, or somebody like me who's listening out there?
Yeah, this is such a perfect time to ask me this question because there's people close to me that are suffering in their work, and it's a conversation I'm having daily with the folks in my family that are dealing with this issue. Here is the simplest way to be the most powerful, enlightened leader. Figure out a way how you show your employees daily that you care for them as a human being, not just an employee. So how do you do that? Well, one is just to recognize their effort. Design something inside your culture where people are nominating somebody to be recognized for the good work that they're doing. So they can nominate a coworker. And then you spend time as a team recognizing that person, what they did, and why that person gets a chance to speak and why they nominated that person. That's one simple measure. But truly, one of the things that I deliver when I speak is that I tell my client, the person who's trusting me to speak in front of their group, is that your people are going to know you care about them because the first thing I'm going to say when I get on stage is, I want you to forget all about work because I want to change your perspective. And then I give them something, a tool or tools to be able to build happiness in their lives. And then the employees goes, wow, Matt brought Dave in to not talk about business or deadlines or the work that we need to do or how we have to get better. He's given me something that's good for me at home too. That then people walk away and say that was really valuable because my leadership cares about me. I had so much of that in the Philadelphia Phillies because of people like Ruley Carpenter, Dave Montgomery, Bill Giles. These people always used to say that they wanted to build a family, not a business. And if you're in a good family, you're always telling the people how much you appreciate them, how much you love them, and how important they are. And then explain why, not just say that. Say, you are valuable to me because, and fill in the blank that is focused on that person. So it's not only recognizing, but it's telling them why. Once your people know that you care about them beyond their work as an employee, they become loyal. They want to come to work, and then you allow them to be their whole self at work. It's a whole big shift in your culture.
Now, are you naturally a positive person, or is this something you worked on as you grew as a person, or both?
Oh, that's so great. No, no, I'm negative Nelly. I'm Debbie Downer. My wife walks around behind me and goes, wah, wah, wah. The reason why I've studied this and the reason why I'm working so hard at it is that I need it more than anybody that I speak to. And to be vulnerable, my biggest weakness throughout my whole life was my temper. My dad used to joke and call it little man's disease because I'm small in stature. I was slow, and so I needed to be a little bit acerbic, and tough and loud in order to get people to. I thought to get people to pay attention to me, and I've hurt relationships all through my life, in my early life, because I would recognize that I would pop off with a burst of temper and realize you can never take that back. So part of my maturation was to get this job as the fanatic, where baked into the work I had to do, and I learned over time how important it was for me to do certain things. Those are all elements of positive psychology. Deliver kindness, take the focus off yourself. You're entertaining somebody else, so you need to work hard to make them happy, make them smile. And then I realized smiles, laughter, and people telling me that they loved me, Even though I was just a bystander for that love, I was, inhabiting a character that wasn't me. It taught me how valuable from a science perspective it was to do these things. So, no, I need this more than anybody. And it's beautiful to be able to remind myself every single day when I'm getting ready to speak to groups or to talk, on podcasts like this and share that. So I appreciate your chance to tell everybody that I'm a flawed human being like we all are, and this has really helped me probably more than anybody.
That's good to hear. Not that you're a flawed human being, but it's good that, like, if you're not naturally a positive person, there are certainly tools out there you can use to get in that proper mind frame to enjoy your life, enjoy your work, and also be productive. And you've seen,
To just to interject there,
sure.
Dave, do you think the Philly Fanatic was like an alter ego for you, where that you're able to distance yourself from who you really are and be somebody different? Because you're talking about focusing in on others, but a lot of focus is made on the mascot itself because that is bringing joy. So you're, dancing, doing all those different activities, and that's bringing attention to you, but in a different way, like as an alter ego. Did you ever think or envision that? And how can someone who's working in our space leverage that as well? Because
Yes.
they might not be in a mascot outfit, but they have their persona in the workplace versus their persona at home, maybe.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think an alter ego is probably a good way to describe it, but there's no question that my personality, Dave Raymond's personality, would float away when I got good at this. It took a long time for me to create the personality, understand what the motivation of the personality was, because I was just given a costume and said, "Go have fun," which was great direction. Actually, Bill Giles said G-rated fun, so I didn't go half. I was a college student at the time, so he didn't know what he might inspire by saying, "Go have fun" with no editing. But once I got into developing the personality and being able to live it and breathe it, when I zipped up my super suit, the fanatic was in charge. So the bystander part of that was to be able to actually see and feel what was happening. I worked the physical work it took to do this well is very, very hard to describe. It's physically and mentally exhausting, just as any performer might tell you in inhabiting another personality. But to relate it back to leaders, just enlightened leaders understand that one of the things they need to do better than everybody else is to hide some of their frustrations, to hold back some of what their immediate thought would be to for a directive, and pause, take a breath, and then give feedback. It doesn't have to be positive feedback. It's sometimes you need to correct behavior that isn't either appropriate or fitting in the group, but it doesn't have to be done with anger. And that's the biggest thing that I learned. You don't have to have another personality, but you need to have a great deal of training, leadership training, to know that it's important not to react to life. Act the way you would want to act and not react, because what people say or do to you, it's that you have no control over that, but you do have a lot of control over how you respond and react to that. Great leaders absorb whatever slings and arrows come their way. They're able to, in a millisecond, just put down the temperature for a minute and then just give positive, honest feedback, as well as positive reinforcement and praise. I mean, I think it's like being a parent when you're a leader, and I'm not trying to diminish the employees as juvenile. It's just the concept of a leadership, I think, is being a wonderful parent. I was brought up in the Leave It to Beaver days, where June and Ward Cleaver would fix whatever problem there was in 30 minutes. But what I learned was when you take the time to do that well and you deliver it, you may not hear for many years from the person who you affected. And they come back and say, "You know what? I just remember one thing you said to me years and years ago. And at the time, I don't know if you knew how transformative it was for me." And I hear my dad's football players to this day tell me those same things. And he was a tremendous leader, but boy, oh boy, he could be tough. But he had a way of doing it really, really tough when it was needed, but also when the person expected that they were really going to get the most tough version of Tubby Raymond, that he was able to surprise them and in that moment have a great deal of calm, in terms of how they delivered the feedback. Being enlightened leaders, it's very difficult, especially in today's world. But the ones who can show their employees they care about them, and that the way they treat them, not the snowflake treatment like we hear some today, but just give them honest, fair feedback, and then give them the positive reinforcement they need too. It's a balance. But I just think the alter ego is a really great way to think about it. That I just have to be somebody who you can certainly be vulnerable as a leader too. But I think the most important thing is to show by example, and great leaders do that naturally.
Thank you.
Dave, one last question before we get to the question where we challenge our audience members as well to answer the question. Um, if you're running a sports venue or running a team and you were going to create a mascot program, and I know you're big into creating themes for the mascot, what kind of advice would you give them if when they're embarking out on that project for the first time? What are the proper steps to take to launch a mascot correctly and well?
I thank you, and I appreciate the chance to answer this as I have with my clients many times. The very first thing is that you have to care about the development of this character. And you care by showing time, by giving time, talent, and resources, including budget, to develop something that you think is going to be very, very powerful. Because if you say, "Hey, I just need somebody dressed in a silly clown costume that stands on the corner and spins this sign," that's not a character brand. That is a person in a costume. So it starts with the organization's care and belief that this is important. Then the very first step always has nothing to do with what the character is going to look like. It has to do what is the story. And the story components come directly from the authentic story of your organization. Founders, supporters, beneficiaries, even villains, and detractors. And then if it's a sporting environment, what is the heartbeat of that sport? What are some of your players been like? What was ownership? How did ownership get to the position to own this team? And you pull little nuggets from all of those things, and you start to tell a backstory where this character was, where it was found, what was its motivation either to come, or did it get saved by the organization? Then it's brought into the organization. What is it doing now that it's here, and why? And this is what the Flyers did to win over a difficult fan base with a character called Gritty, who looks a little scary, because they could answer all the why questions right away, because they designed a story that was all about hockey, all about the Flyers, their players, their owners, the history. And when you are able to answer why, and you own whatever the backstory is, and you live it and breathe it, and I always tell my clients, generally, especially if you got rid of another mascot or you're starting from scratch in an area that doesn't have a lot of mascots, you're going to get negative input in the beginning because it's the loudest and it's the one you'll hear. You need to embrace that, have fun with it, show them that you're not frightened of negative feedback, and continually say, this character is ours, though. Look, here's why it looks like this. This is why it's shaped like this. This is why the colors are like this. And let me tell you something, this character is about making our community better on top of entertaining you at sporting events. And if you just keep delivering that message, and as long as you live it that way, your character is going to be very successful, because what it looks like comes out of the story. And the Flyers and Gritty, it's a wonderful example of an organization following that very religiously, caring about it before they created it, and then really, really caring about it after they created it. And it's truly has been one of the best new mascots, I think, in the history of this business. So I appreciate the question, and it's just about believing that it's important, and telling a great story that's authentic to your organization first.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you. Gritty sort of cuts through the noise. It seems like the mascots you hear are some of the ones that were established sort of right in that mascot golden era that you helped develop. But Gritty kind of one of the modern ones that you hear a lot about, has a large following. And I will say this, you get some of the credit for that because they originally contacted you to help develop and design that. So you're certainly a man who nobody knows mascots better than you, and they chose wisely when they called you.
Thank you.
Now this is the part of the show where we wrap up. We're going to ask a question. We'll take a little break, give our audience the time to think, and then we'll go around the room for an answer. The question is designed because we have a lot of college students listening. And it may seem like a common sense question, but it's still one that needs to be answered because you want to get your career off to a good start and you want to know what to bring to the table, so to speak. As a student beginning your career in a sports facility, let's say you get that first job in a sports facility, what can you and should you be doing to show a positive attitude to help set yourself up for success? All right, so Gail, now that people have had times to think about it, if you were counseling a student, which you do, and they had their first job in a sports facility, and they ask you, what kind of attitude they should have to help set themselves up for success, what would you tell them, and what should they bring to the table?
Well, I think, as they say, the repetition is the greatest form of flattery, and what Dave had mentioned about kindness, I think whenever you're kind, that helps set you up, incredibly for whatever your career journey is, because you are going to be taking a journey with a lot of other people. And so the more that you're kind to other people, that's going to help you out. But I think to build off of something that Dave mentioned about mascots, having a story, the why this, why that, you should be able to answer that. Why are you in the sport space? If you love it because you love the people, you love what's going on, you love the team. I keep telling students, look, you can love what you're doing, but you also have to make people money. So you have to be able to blend the two of the why, the story, but also where do you want to go? And if you can focus on, you want to take your team, your employer to new heights, new money, new enjoyment, new excitement, whatever it's going to be, and you become part of that story, that's, I think, what's going to lead you to success. If you distance yourself from the story, if you don't become part of that why, if it doesn't resonate with you and you're just doing your job, people are going to tell, and they're going to be able to understand, and they're not going to be wanting to promote you to the next position because you're not there as part of a team. Remember, this is a team. Are you part of that team? And so become part of that team. Ask the questions why you're there, and then give the direction of where you want to go. And I think you will succeed.
Mhm.
Good answer, Gail. And I would, just to build off that answer, I would say a lot of the same things that you said. Be kind, be positive, and you heard from Dave, even if that's not your natural disposition, you're trying to make a good impression. And when you are kind and when you are nice and positive, it sort of becomes your disposition. It rubs off, and it makes it more enjoyable. And I think it was Spencer Tracy, is a great actor from days gone by, who won a bunch of Oscars. He always said about his what was his success was showing up on time and knowing your lines. There's a lot that can be said for work. When you're a new employee, make sure you're there on time. When there's more work to do, volunteer to stay there and do it with a positive attitude. And then work on acquiring those skills. Once they acquire those, you acquire those skills that they need, they'll be begging to keep you. Dave, what are your thoughts?
Wow, I just all those things, that was really a super answer, and it resonated with me with my memories of starting with the Phillies. My dad, when he helped me get a job with the Phillies in the summer of 1976, as my whole career with the Phillies started there, and he said two things: do whatever they ask you to do, so you're the go-to person for anything, and you'll never know who you'll meet or what might happen. So the things that one thing I would add to what all of you said, which really took all of the answers that I was thinking about, is to be curious. Now, I'm a big Ted Lasso fan, and be curious is one of the elements of that show that comes out again and again. But be curious means to shine the light on somebody and ask them, "Hey, what do you do here, and what would you consider your biggest win when you're here? What's your biggest challenge?" And you do it in a way where you're not constantly peppering people with questions as the new person on the block, but just when you get the opportunity, be curious about the people who are around you, both your peers and your leadership, because people like to share about themselves. It's a way to get to know the business more, is to be curious. And the additive in terms of a hack is to always use a smile. Smile is the most powerful human expression we can ever use, and it is really a superpower. It even can diffuse situations as long as it's not a smile that seems to be less than complimentary about the feedback you're getting. Just smile and smiling and learning how to smile and at the right time and using that is really a powerful tool. So be curious. Whenever you can smile, smile with, your full face smile. Look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and smile so that you can see what it looks like. It's really a wonderful tool to be able to get along with a team. And I thought, Gil, that was really important to talk about a team. And the thing I also liked what you mentioned, Gil, was to understand this is a business, and you're going to need to help your company make money. And a lot of people, I think, in the new generation don't like to think in terms of that, but you can do those things, be joyful, be happy, be curious, and still be helping your organization making money. One does not exclude the other. So I think it's one. I talk to young people all the time, and I say they'll hire you and pay you money to be a mascot as long as you're helping them make money. There's no other reason for them to have it. So I appreciate the baseline understanding is important that you're trying to make you be valuable for your organization. You got to help them make more money.
Great answer, Dave. You've certainly brought a lot of joy to this world, and you brought some joy to this podcast. So we appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
My pleasure. Appreciate you including me.
Thank you.